Welcome to Camera Ready and Able, the podcast that explores the intersection of media change and personal growth. I'm your host, Barbara Barna Abel, and my calling is to help you tap into your superpowers to thrive on camera and in life, and to make an impact on the world. This episode is brought to you by the phrase, build discipline, embrace fear. To build discipline is to develop self-discipline, which is the ability to control and regulate your own behavior, actions, and decisions so you can achieve your goals. Embracing fear is to acknowledge that one, you have fear, and two, that fear teaches you something that allows you to grow. This is deep stuff, and I'll be honest, probably another one of my asking for a friend episodes. So here to discuss is Eric Cogorno, who is a performance golf coach and true trailblazer, bridging the worlds of traditional golf instruction with digital technology, building a seven-figure business with his online training platform, Eric Cogorno Golf, and hugely popular YouTube channel. Eric is on a mission to make world-class golf instruction available to everyone. If you need to work on your swing, Eric has got you covered. Welcome to the podcast, Eric.
Yeah, Barbara, that was what an awesome intro that was there. Flawless. Love those, the discipline and the embrace fear, and appreciate you having me. I'm excited to chat today.
Oh, likewise. And I want to say just, in terms of Simpatico, I love your mission to make world-class golf instruction available to everyone so that it's not, simply something that's accessible to people who can afford it or somewhere in the elite, even though the quality of your instruction is elite. And I feel the same way. It's a core principle of my podcast and my work that I do is to provide access to information that people might not have had otherwise. So I just want to share that. I love that. So your business partner, Mary Lengle, who I love and adore, was on the podcast a while ago. And honestly, one of my favorite all-time episodes, I can say that, because she was talking about, her phrase was, is it nice or necessary? Which I just thought is such a great mantra for anybody building something. She was constantly asking, is it nice or is it necessary? Am I being distracted by the shiny new thing? And so I was going to say that maybe you would say developing discipline and embracing fear are necessary. This is really sort of just broad. So can you walk me through that? Because you chose the phrase.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it was interesting coming on here before thinking too, Barbara, of what are the things that would serve, your listeners and your audience the best. And I think the embracing fear and building discipline things for me sort of equally were important for me just as a human being in my life to improve myself, but also very important in terms of building a brand. And I think the golf specifically that we built, the brand online, is probably the thing that's most applicable to the listeners, that I think could be interesting. And going back to the beginning parts of starting YouTube and starting a brand, and like you mentioned, I was just unbelievably fortunate to meet Mary Lengle early in the process, or we're not sitting here today. But me going on camera, right? Like I coached golf growing up. I played golf and I coached golf. But getting to the point where I was going to go on camera and start to share my thoughts and share things with an audience, I'm very introverted naturally and like have a lot of anxiety and I'm nervous about things. And so that the concept of going on camera and putting myself out there was tremendously scary, for me in the beginning. And that embracing fear that I was learning about just in my own life in general just happened to be kind of at that same time that we started doing our filming, or else we probably would never have. So I think that's very applicable for those watching, and we're all kind of, thinking about or nervous or worried about sharing our stuff and being out there. So I think that's where that fits in. And then the building the discipline part, Barbara, we're on year 8 of our YouTube, golf videos. And it certainly wasn't like it was successful like on day 1 or even year 1. Looking back upon, man, we did so many videos for so long until we started to gain traction. And that's where I think the discipline piece comes in. Mary and I said to each other, probably no less than 100 times, like, let's just post 3 videos a week, just post 3 videos a week, just post 3 videos a week. Like just the discipline of we show up every Monday for 8 years, film the videos, post the videos, no matter what. And so I thought that phrasing was applicable, for life and the building the brand in general, embracing the fear. I think understanding that all of us are going through that same thing. Like when I first started doing videos, I'm sure you, when you first started, anyone listening, anyone who we see now that's very successful was certainly had those same fears in the beginning and just decided to act, in spite of that. and then have the discipline to be able to do it for a long enough period of time to test it and really, build traction and gain some success.
I love that we're starting here because in my head, before we started talking, I was explaining how like I had no self-discipline as a kid. So ergo, I'm not a golfer because I was a junior golfer and then But I want to go to what you just said about embracing fear because you're absolutely right. So how did you do it?
I read a book by Susan Jeffers. I believe that's her name. And it was called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. If anyone's listening and wants to grab a book on that, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, Susan Jeffers. And there were some phrases in there. And honestly, the title of the book was really the thing that I took home. I'm always buying books like that and reading, just looking for like a nugget or two like that. It's just a sentence or two sometimes in a book that could really change your life. And basically what I got from the book and from her was that everyone feels the fear. So I'm not just me. I'm not different, feeling nervous about these things. That's normal. It's okay. And then B, gosh, really the difference between those who achieve the things and accomplish the stuff that I'm looking up to and where I was at or where people who don't was really just the fact that they acted anyway. Like I guess when I was growing up and thinking and had these fear, I was like, oh, I'm afraid or I'm fearful of this, but maybe no one else is, right? Like maybe this is just a me thing. But learning that, hey, we all fear that. We all feel that same thing. And just that the difference is some people act, in spite of it and some don't. And I was definitely a feel fear like a wall, run away from it person, for a long time. And I think what that book helped me with was like, hey, feel the fear. It's okay. And then over time, I developed, strategies to work through that, like breathing, like being present, those sort of things that have helped.
A big difference now that didn't exist when I was growing up is even people talking about this, to acknowledge what you just said, where you feel like it's just you. And even though I'm friendly and outgoing, I too am by nature an introvert. But to your point, nobody talked about it when I was growing up. Their vulnerability wasn't a thing that was considered a weakness. So I think it's tremendously helpful now that amazing people come out and say, oh yeah, I was terrified, or I'm always terrified when I have to go out and give a speech, but I do it anyway and I connect to purpose, etc. And that's tremendously helpful because I grew up with this idea that, there was something missing in me and that everybody else was born with some innate gift and that it was easy.
Mm-hmm. You said something in one of your previous podcasts. I think it was when you were talking about like there was the should one that you were doing.
Obsessed
And
with the shoulds.
You said something in there. I don't know the exact phrasing, but it was like you can't get to step 100 until you've done step 1 through 99. And I think the fear thing there is like you can't get to step 100 until you've done 1 through 99. And that step 1 for everyone starts with fear. It's uncertainty. We don't know what's going to go on. And it's just like those people who get to step 100 eventually, who don't quit along the way, felt the same things and just worked through it. Like that's kind of where I'm at it with a macro perspective on it. And so like when we started doing those golf videos and I was looking at people on YouTube who were successful that I like wanted to be like, and they've done, 100, 500 videos, they have all these subscribers. It helped me a lot knowing that at some point in time, they were in the same position that I am now on day one, being nervous about this and fearful. And I think that book really helped open my eyes to that.
That everyone's a beginner at some point.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't feel like that. Like when you're starting doing the thing, as you know, it's kind of hard to have that perspective. You're in the moment, you're focused on how you feel. How do I look in this thing? What are people going to think of this? And I think as you go later on, we get perspective of the impact we're trying to make. And like, we're here doing this to help other people. You get out of you and into how you can help people. But in the beginning, it's hard to kind of have that mindset.
And I also want to tap into something, in the steps, 1 to 99, there's also something that I'm obsessed with called The Messy Middle, which is based on a fabulous book by Scott Belsky that I highly recommend. It's really for founders and entrepreneurs, but it's relevant to anybody. And then the messy middle is where most people quit. If you start, which is awesome, the hardest part is the middle. And that's where so many lessons are learned, but that's where you get a lot of people get stuck because it gets really, really hard. And it's often not fun. Because you're not growing as fast, you're working really hard, glitches are happening, you're suddenly more aware of competition. There are a lot of things that happen in the messy middle, and it's helped me so much as a mindset. And so I'm curious if it happened to you, because I feel like you guys are, way on the other side. And what are some of the steps as you were that combination of embracing or, facing your fear and building and I love your self-discipline, the discipline of like, just put the video, 3 a week, or the discipline of, I don't know what goes into it for you.
Yeah, I love that. Gosh, I'll have to read that. I don't think I have read that before. Yeah, that's certainly true, isn't it? It's easy to quit along the way in the middle. So what comes to mind first was we had a lot of clarity on the end goal or the North Star, what we were trying to do.
May I ask
So
what it
like,
was? What is your North Star?
yeah, so it was very financial in the beginning. I consider myself super lucky for two things. One, me meeting Mary Langle, having a partner to do all this with. Side note too, back to the beginning. For me, anything I've done well in the business world, I've had a partner, and that's cannot recommend that highly enough for me. And the second thing that I was extremely lucky with is I happened to come across Jim Rohn and a Jim Rohn goal setting workshop. This is probably 35. This is probably 9 years ago, maybe. So we started posting on YouTube January 1, 2017. I had probably come across Jim Rohn in 2016, so probably the year before. One of my friends sent me a Tony Robbins video randomly, and one of the recommended videos was Jim Rohn. And I love Jim Rohn. I've been listening to some of his videos every day for like 7, 8 years. So anyway, I came across a goal setting workshop and I went through and did the exercise. It's like, oh, I'm going to try this thing. It was like an hour-long goal setting workshop. And so I took a legal pad out and wrote down, it's like your sort of 10-year dream life vision, and really started to think about for the first time in detail what I wanted my life to look like 10 years from now. And so I made a list of all the things I'd want, no rules attached, houses, cars, this, that, the next thing. And then I did the math on that. And all of that stuff I wanted ended up being about like $20,000 a month, which I think is funny too. When I take people through that exercise, you do it. I think a lot of times we think like, all this dream life thing is going to cost like $1 million a month, or like it costs so much money, when in fact, oftentimes it doesn't. But anyway, it was 20 grand a month. And so I reverse engineered our online business to get to the point where I would make that amount of money to be able to live my dream life with financial freedom. So I was like pretty clear on that even before I even met Mary and what we were starting to do. And so it was really just like math, to be honest, of how do I get to this end goal of this financial freedom? And how the heck could I get to the point where I would get that amount? So just to be candid, like I wanted to have that $20,000 a month with financial freedom, meaning I needed enough money invested to be able to spit that out every month. So I figured out that was like $4 million. So I was like, okay, 10 years from now, I need $4 million invested to have this kind of money. And then you just break that down. Like I need 4 million. I have 10 years to get it. What do I need per year? And at this point in time, when I'm doing this, and I don't know if people want to hear the money stuff, I think this is interesting. Like I'm coaching golf making maybe $80,000 a year, right? It's not nothing, but not a million. And when I did my financial freedom thing, I needed to make like $1.2 million a year every year for the next 10 years to hit that number. And Barbara, I mean, maybe I had 5 grand saved at this point. It's like I have close to $0. So at that point, that expanded my mind for the first time in a long time, of just like thinking that this might even be totally change the way I was looking at things. It's like, there's no chance that I could possibly make $1.2 million a year doing what I'm doing now. Like I can't teach, 1 hour per day or hourly lessons. And so I started to think like, okay, who has done this, or does anyone make $1 million a year in the golf space, and how do they do it? What do they do? And the only thing I found, this is through weeks of looking at this, was like a monthly recurring membership, like an online membership site. And so I started to look at that, do the math on that. I'm like, okay, well, if we got 2,000 people at $50 a month, yada, yada, yada. And so when Mary and I met, I had that very clear in my mind of like, okay, I think we need to post this amount of videos for this long to get this people to sign up at this price point to get to this end goal. So it was very to plan. Now, to the point of like the wanting to quit in the middle, I mean, or it being hard in the middle. I mean, I wanted to quit probably 100 times along the way. So it certainly wasn't just, hey, let's start filming videos. This plan's going according to plan.
Nothing is linear ever.
No, gosh. Yeah, quit in the middle. So true. So I say all that to kind of give perspective maybe of when I got to those tough points in the beginning or in the middle, maybe I'm year 2, 3, 4, 5. I still had a lot of clarity on my where I'm going in 10 years. So I'm like, if I have a bad 2, 3, 4, we're still like in the first half of the game. It's still the second quarter. I've got plenty of time to figure this out. So I think I like to set really long-term stuff. And so if I'm looking at something that's 10, 20, 30, 50 years out, 3 years into a 20-year goal is very short. And so I think that helped when we had those struggles along the way. It's a long roundabout answer, but just to give some perspective on that.
Okay, Eric, you are so why I love talking to athletes, and I love sports metaphors, because first of all, that was a great answer, but also just this takeaway of like looking at your life, even if we're going to look at like as a football game or a soccer match, let's say, because it's long, that you're like, you were just, as said, you were only in the first quarter. And we know that champions consistently in a mindset thing are playing till the very last minute of the game. That's what separates, why look at all the amazing people from like Roger Federer to great, football teams that come back after being down at halftime.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, I sorry, I could just waffle on about this, but so I just love that what you just identified is, so for many of us, we're just too in it and in our heads, and we have to take a step back. And that's so great to go, hey, it's only the first quarter, maybe not even.
I want to just dig into that real quick too, Barbara. I think because I'm a big, I write down every day daily goals. I have weekly goals, monthly, 90-day. I do like the short-term thinking, but it's to your point of not getting too stuck in it. Like you can get a lot of stuff done, in 90 days. But if you're so in the just what am I creating in these 90 days and you lose sight of where am I relative to the 10, 20, 30, 50 year, like I want to live to be 100. I'm 35. So to me, I have like 65 years left. So when I look at that zoomed out, it's like, man, I could have a lot of bad 90-day sets, over these next couple of years. And I still have a tremendous amount of time to do things. I think when we get so hyper short term, we get so into what are the results I'm getting per se versus like I could be in that middle phase ready to quit, getting poor results on these YouTube videos and still in my mind being like, gosh, we're still learning. Like we're still so early in the process of learning what we're doing. This every set or year of videos we have to me is just us getting better for the next year and the next set and the next year, the next set, and the next year, the next set. And so I do think that long-term perspective for people who are feeling stuck in the now is a big time help. And I look at that almost every day. Just like the fear thing, I have the same things you have. I have to be talking to myself about the breathing and fear things. I have to remind myself of what's going on long term. Like I've got a legal pad over here that I'll write down my long term things multiple times per week, especially if I'm having a bad day or bad moment, just to regain clarity on like, oh, nope, okay, here's where we're going. Like this is where we're headed. Sort of like, this is okay, Eric. Like, don't worry about this. We're going to be okay.
I'm not kidding when there's a truism in coaching that says, you're always encountering people that you need to speak to or you're going to learn from. And I'm just sitting here going, I feel like I should pay you for this time. Like I'm learning so much from you in this conversation. But moving on, so that gets me. Okay, you were a scratch golfer at 15. Very impressive. So besides technical expertise, what do you feel is required to be a good coach? Like, so why that you're good at it?
Communication, technical knowledge, which you stated, understanding people, and probably like EQ, emotional intelligence. I think if you're golf, life, whatever, yeah, I mean, you have to have the technical knowledge, right? To know what you're talking about. Knowing how to present the information to the specific person in front of you, don't you think is like probably got to be number two? I could be teaching the same person that 2 + 2 = 4, but the person on the left, I've got to say it with a certain tone and speed, and the person on the right, I've got to say it maybe different. So I think knowing how to EQ, emotional intelligence, person in front of you, and then communication. John Maxwell has that. What is that quote? He says, "Educators take something simple and make it complicated. Communicators take something complicated and make it simple." And so one of the things we're doing our videos, I'm always really cognizant of, because my natural pace, even though I'm introverted, when we're talking is to go fast and words come out and I'm sort of on to the next thing. But as a listener, what would be like the optimal way to learn if there's someone in front of me? And that would be, I would want the information presented slowly to the point, clear, and probably repeated. So like when we're doing a video, I've always got that Toastmasters mantra. It's like, tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them. Like, hey, today in this lesson, we're going to talk about X. This is X. This was X. And so, yeah, I think technical knowledge, knowing how to deal with different people. Do you find that as well in coaching? It's like, gosh, you can give the same information, but to multiple different people, you got to present it so differently.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are two mantras that go with that. One is you're always meeting your audience where they are, and then asking, it's audience focus, right? Or listener or community, however you want to describe it. And you're always going to ask yourself, what are their expectations? How does this group of people or this person need to be spoken to be able to receive the information I'm sharing? And then one of my favorite mantras I share all the time on the podcast and with clients is goal, audience, platform. You always ask yourself, what's the goal? Who's the audience? What's the platform? How do I speak to this audience via this platform to achieve the goal? Because in your example for you, Eric, because your information is not going to change, or your methodology is your methodology. But if you're speaking to a room full of golf professionals, you're going to speak to them differently than you would to a room full of investors who may be golfers but need to hear some different things versus, a group of junior golfers or a group of people who don't play golf at all, but just want to learn and maybe feel intimidated. The information's the information, but you're going to meet them in a different way. So that was my long-winded spiel, but you gave a nice segue into one of my questions, which is, it's obvious to me that one of your superpowers is to break down complicated information and to deliver it in a way that is accessible. So was that always a thing for you? Or did you actually, because I'm really, really curious, and my segue here was how you and Mary figured out to break it down and then to use and maximize what was available in digital technology to make it visual.
Yeah, I think, it's an interesting one when that comes up, but I'm not totally sure. My thinking is I've always been pretty good at it. But then I also certainly understand, like at some point in time, that must have been developed somewhere along the way. I do think that giving so many lessons one-on-one with someone for years and years and years, it's hard to not get pretty good at it. I certainly studied.
Yeah, to interrupt you, because this is for anyone listening. So you're doing it so many times, you start to understand this is how people understand this thing that I do naturally. Because that's part of the thing I'm also getting at. It's like, you're naturally good at something and you have to explain that to people who are not naturally good at that thing. So that does take a lot of awareness on your part. And so, but your point is, I think that you were constantly getting proof of concept in all those one-on-one and live group lessons.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah, I was constantly getting proof of concept. I also think I was lucky in that golf is such a difficult game that it just requires so much patience. And so I think I had a lot of empathy for the person that was standing in front of me. They were trying. This is hard. I was trying the best I can. And golf is one of those things in life that is endlessly complicated, but also beautifully simple at the same time. You're swinging a golf club, but gosh, there's like 1,000 little micro parts to it. And so it's easy to overwhelm. Like I think I found my first year or two of coaching, Barbara, like I think in the beginning of anything, I gave way too much information, probably out of like I was sort of ego or like, let me prove that I know what I'm doing sort of thing. I think you're self-conscious when you start coaching, you probably overgive. And I think as you coach more over time, you learn that less is more. And so I really consciously, I remember a period. So I guess as I'm talking, what I'm realizing is the answer is I did spend a lot of focus and time and energy on this during my coaching years. Yeah, I coached for 10 years in person every day with golfers before we started doing videos. And so I always tell people when we talk about, how they should start and stuff, it's like, gosh, for 10 years of my life, I was like obsessed with coaching and studying the technical, how to talk to people, communicate, did all the courses, read all the stuff. So that's a better answer. I spent a lot of time on it. But my first year or two, I was really bad. I cared a lot. My technical knowledge was okay. But like if someone didn't get a result on the next swing, I would kind of, let's try the next thing. Let's do this. Let's do that. And then we're doing 20 things. I remember a period of time where I realized I was doing that. And I tried to, for months, do lessons. I would track how many words I would say. So my goal was to speak as little as possible, but still get the best result. And so I even think now, like some of my cadence when I'm saying things, it's like, how do I say the least amount of words, but get the biggest impact? And when I did that as like a little experiment, Barbara, I found the results of the lessons got way better, almost one to one. Almost the less I spoke, the better the performance of the person in front of me. And so, again, proof of concept to your point, when I started seeing that, I think I ran with that. And so, if I've got 10 years of that, seeing that, and then Mary and I start filming, and when I'm looking into the camera, I'm always imagining I'm speaking to a person, like they're sort of my typical customer on the other side, what they would be looking for and thinking. And so I imagine I'm speaking to them who I've already been kind of coaching for 10 years. And so I know the things they're thinking, the questions they have, the things I say where they say to themselves, I don't know about that, or something I say where I'm like, I need to say that again, you know? And so to me, once we started doing the filming and the communication, it was like, oh, I kind of had already been doing this for 10 years. But it was really key for me to look in that camera and imagine it was the person in front of me, not like, hey, I'm looking at the camera. Oh my gosh, 1,000 people might see this. It was like a specific golfer that I was giving a lesson to.
Okay, that's media training 101. That was so beautifully articulated, Eric, because that's it. You're only ever speaking to one person, ever. I love that. I want to ask you, what's your favorite part in all of this?
Yeah, I also realized I didn't answer the second half of your question about like going digital with that, which I gladly will.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
do you want me to hit on that first?
Whatever you want to hit on, Eric.
Yeah, so I didn't answer that second part. Yeah, so I could certainly see in the landscape, in 2017. Well, again, so half of it for me was I'm making this amount of money. My dream life requires this. I can't do that teaching 1 hour lessons forever. So it was like 50% financial me motivated and 50% motivated by I would like to help more people. Like if I had a really busy week and I gave about 40, maybe 45 billable hours, that meant I could only help 45 people in that week. And I'm watching these guys do golf videos and gals do golf videos. And, maybe they put a video out that gets 100,000 views. And I'm like, you know how many hours it would take me to like get to 100,000 people? I don't even know if it's doable. So part of it was that mentality. How can I would give some of these lessons for an hour and it was just me and the person. I'm like, man, like that was a really good lesson. Like that was good stuff. I could help so many people, but only only him and I saw it. So I'm like, God, this would be really good to get to more people. So part of it was that it was motivated by helping other people. And I could kind of see, we're 2016, 17. So we filmed our first videos in 2016, launched January 1, 2017. You could see what was going on. You could see the videos going online. You could see some of these people starting these online membership sites in golf schools. There wasn't many at that time, maybe 4 or 5. So part of why we wanted to do the digital and spread it was financially motivated based on my big picture stuff. Number two was helping the most amount of people possible. And then you could kind of like, hey, let's get in early on this. So favorite part of the process. It's interesting now, Barbara, because Mary and we're in year 8 of our golf journey. And part of this vision and this dream life is me doing personal development stuff. And so we just now, a couple of weeks ago, started launching a new personal development channel. And so it's interesting now and fun to be like back to day one. It's like we're literally, it brings back so many memories of when we first started filming the videos, which you lose sight of 8 years later. So I think I'm in a moment now that's very fun. We have got to a point with golf where we've got a big enough team of people to help with stuff. I have to do far less stuff I don't want to do compared to the beginning. Again, it's tough too, Barbara, when I talk about some of these things, because I was so lucky to meet Mary and she did all of the filming and the editing and like so many things that I never had to worry about. So I feel like I had like a cheat code. I didn't have to do a lot of stuff that I didn't want to do in the beginning. It was just so fortunate. But I think it's fun in the beginning. I think it's scary and difficult and fun. It's just really easy to make progress in the beginning, like we said before. Someone wants to lose 100 pounds. It's like those first couple are really easy. And you kind of build this momentum, get some small wins, you're feeling good. And then you kind of start to get stuck a little bit. So yeah, I think now's a pretty fun time.
So wait, explain to me your goal with the personal development channel. This is exciting.
So when I saw that Jim Rohn workshop, you know how every once in a while something will happen. For me, like a telltale sign of something is when it is like deals with emotions. I'm trying to figure out the best way to communicate this. When I watched the Jim Rohn workshop, I almost was like teary-eyed doing it. I was almost like it just brought up so many emotions in me when I was doing it. And I had a sense that like this was going to be such a game-changing thing for me, which means it also had to be game-changing for so many other people. And that really turned me on to the idea of like, could I help and impact people at a much greater level with this personal development stuff compared to just the golf? Like, I don't believe that I was meant to do the golf coaching. I think the golf coaching was like a part of a process and journey to the next sort of thing. So when I saw him do that workshop, I got the idea in my mind of like, okay, could I do this? You
Mhm.
know, like, could I do this personal development, really help people? There also gets to be a point, I think, where helping people golf better is fun, but it's still just a game. You know, I felt like my impact sometimes was, um, at this level, whereas I think I could help people live better, which in my mind, the perception is that the impact would be greater. So part of that 10-year process and journey was like, let's, I don't like to use the word use, but let's build this golf thing to the point where that creates the financial freedom for us, creates the lifestyle that we want to have. So that now we have an opportunity, time, resources, financials to do the personal development without any, we don't have to make any money right away. There's no pressure on it. And so I just turned 35 when we started this 10-year journey, 10-year goal setting. I was 30. So my goals to get all these things are 5 years from now, which is, when I'm 40. And so I always visualize from the beginning. I'm like, I think when I'm about 35, we'll have the golf business built to the point where we'll start doing personal development. I think it'll take us 5 years or so, to build it up to the point where it's kind of even with where the golf is. And so it's been amazing to me, Barbara. I know we're going to different things here, but like the time that I spent getting clear on, what my 10-year goals were and manifesting, and like I do a 20-minute meditation every day, and like 10 minutes of it is me visualizing these things happen, which I've been doing for, 7, 8 years now, every day. And it is like unbelievable how much of the things that I think about, they don't just happen. Of course, we make them happen, but the things that I'm aware of now and the opportunities that I now see because I'm thinking about it. So I think a lot of the answers and the stuff we're talking about, and then I'll stop talking about this, the underlying thing to like how we got through the tough middle part and why we're doing what we're doing, it's like all really that underlying current of we were really clear on what the big picture vision was and spent a lot of time ongoing, like staying clear and visualizing all those things happening.
This is incredible. I could talk to you all day, Eric. So now I'm hoping that you'll come back as you're developing the next step
Likewise.
and to talk more about this, because I just think what you just said was so beautiful and valuable. I kind of just want to sit with it and allow the listeners to sit with it. So I'm going to have you come back for a part 2 and probably a part 3 and maybe on and on and on. Where can people find you, by the way? And also, what takes place in your membership that's different than accessing videos for free on YouTube?
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's a lot of that I have to talk about too. So the membership thing, basically we do coaching on the site.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start putting content out, and I was always worried about the like, well, if I give everything away for free, what are they going to buy on the back end? And I forget who I first heard it say, but they said sell the info, or I'm sorry, give the information for free and sell the implementation. Oh, I thought that was good. Give the information, sell the implementation, meaning I might do a video that says like, hey, here's how you fix your slice, but you may or may not actually be able to do it from just the video. So I'm going to sell you, helping you go through the process. So the membership site, they get the actual coaching, like, hey, I know I have a slice. This is kind of how I'm supposed to do it. Can you help me work through that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure a lot of, with your coaching is similar. Like people kind of maybe have a general idea of what they're supposed to do or need to do, but they need help doing the thing. So that's what the membership is. That's cogornogolf.com.
Can I
Our
jump in there
YouTube
right
channel.
there? One, just to remind everyone, because this comes up in the communication space, and since you're an athlete, athletes have coaches and train forever. The more elite and medal winning you are, the more, anyway, everybody's got a coach. Opera singers and, vocalists have coaches. Great CEOs all have coaches. And so I just want to bring this up is because I want people to let go of the idea that going for coaching or training, et cetera, is somehow because you're only quote unquote fixing a problem or there's something negative. So to your point, like no matter if I was a mediocre to fantastic golfer, I'd always want someone to be on my team, a sounding board, having access to your community, because my goal is to constantly, whatever, it's 1% better. I never want to stay where I am. And so I think that's a beautiful thing that you're offering.
Thank you. And I love what you said there. And we could talk a lot about that too. I've found in my experience, it's like the reverse of what's intuitive. I have always gotten so like significantly better results when I've gotten a coach in any category, business, health, whatever. And I look back and like, oh my gosh, the fact that I didn't have a coach for all those years was leading me to poor results. Like I lost so much for so many years not having people guide me in certain areas of my life. So like I have coaches for everything. Like to me, if I've got an area that's going on that I don't have a coach on, it's like, gosh, that's such a yeah, well, we can save that for a longer thing. I've got a lot of thoughts on that, but yeah, the
come
website,
back to that conversation.
Yeah, cogornogolf.com is the golf stuff. I think that's the best way to do it. We are doing this personal development. We just launched a brand. It's called Lessons I've Learned with Eric Cogorno. We just posted a couple of videos, and it's sort of that. It's me presenting things I've learned. Hopefully that will help other people as well.
Oh, this is fantastic. I can't wait to go check this out. And I'm going to read Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yes.
And I might have to go back and watch some Jim Rohn videos later. Thank you. You are just a font. I feel, so simpatico. This is great.
Yeah, this was great, Barbara. I've got so many other things I'd love to talk to you with. I would love to come back and do a part 2.
You're coming back. You just tell me when.
Deal.
And I want to thank you for listening to Camera Ready and Able. If you have a word or phrase you'd like me to explore, please shoot me a note via my website, ableintermedia.com, and be sure to download my free ebook, 12 Tips for Success on Camera. And if you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you did, please leave a 5-star rating. It really helps. Thank you.